So we should be online here. We should be starting. I'm going to check with the chatbot team. Can you guys hear me? Should we start? If you could let me know in the chat, that would be amazing. Hello. Yeah, perfect. So, Sydney, I'm suggesting, yeah, we can start now. Cool. All right. Yeah, hello everybody. Thanks to the chatbot team for inviting us to being here at the panel. And of course, thanks to everybody who's joining our panel here. Use the chat to say hello to each other. Let us know where you're from. There's also a Q&A section. Section. If you have questions, put them in there so that I know where to find your questions during the talk. Yeah, my name is Romina. I'm based in Berlin, Germany, and I'm a voice user experience designer at an agency that's based in London called Vixen Labs. And I'm also the Chief Chapters Officer at Women in Voice Global. That's why I'm here to moderate the panel, and I'm very excited to have these four lovely panelists here with me. Before we jump in, so what's our topic of the day? We are going to talk about Voice First, where we are at and where we are heading. I guess that's kind of a classic panel topic or conference topic, but we really want to look at this from an international perspective and compare where things are at from the perspectives of different countries. So we have Spain, Italy, India, and Israel here, and myself from Germany, and I'm very excited to hear different perspectives and to hear where things are at in each market and how they differ. And just one last note, we were supposed to have Jenny Mero here as well from the US. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, but she says hi. And yeah, let's just jump right in. I would suggest, how about we just all, or all of you, because I already did it, do a little round of introductions. Falene, how about we start with you, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you're doing in voice and conversational AI, please.
Well, hi, my name is Falene. I am a developer at Intuition Robotics. Our product is LEQ. She is a robot designed to help older adults function and age in place. She is voice first with multimodal design principles as well. She is a robot and a screen. And thank you, Jason. I am aware you're in my fan club and I do appreciate it. So this is what I do right now. My background is in linguistics. I did 8 years of education all the way up to a PhD. And I very much enjoy the linguistics aspect of that. I'm also an SSML, too many S's there, SSML whiz, and I really enjoy interfering with all of that. I am from Israel, and we'll talk about the complexities of voice in Israel and adoption therein, but our product is currently in English, and so that's mostly where I work. And yes, that's a wonderful, wonderful word, Mike.
Right. Thank you, Falene. Bea, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Bea Dobrzynska, and I am from Italy. I work at AlmaWave, is one of the major AI companies here in Italy. We do have our conversational AI platform, which is called WaveBot. I am responsible for product marketing, so I'm not a technical person, but definitely mostly interested in all the market aspects and market perspectives of conversational AI, of chatbots and voice bots. It is quite a big responsibility to represent Italy today. I don't feel like representing a country, right? But I will do my best. Thank you.
I'm sure you will do amazing representing Italy here, Bea. Thank you so much. Saran, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Romina. I'm Sarandeep. I am from Workfront. I am in between jobs, so I can't talk a lot about that at the moment. But I have experience in conversation AI, chatbot, contact center automation during my last 8 years, more from strategy, consulting, and design perspective. And I am also the chapter co-founder for Women in Voice India, and therefore I am here. and looking forward to bringing the perspectives from India and where voice is headed in India. It's definitely a exciting space to be in, and I'm looking forward to share my thoughts or my I wouldn't say knowledge, but just few bits of information with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And you just mentioned a very good point here. Yes, so we are all in Women in Voice, and that's kind of how we also met for this panel, right? So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And yeah, handing over to another ambassador of the Spain chapter, Nieves, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Romina. So I'm Nieves Ábalos, I'm from Spain, and I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Monoceros Labs. Monoceros is an innovation studio. We are focused on voice technologies in Spanish. And in 2009, I started researching dialogue systems at the University of Granada, and I was on the path of doing a PhD, but I quit in 2013. But I've been involved since then on products and research based on conversational AI. I'm also AWS certified Alexa skill builder and Alexa champion. And what I do in voice and conversational AI, well, at Monoceros, we started our company in 2018, and since then we build voice and multimodal applications for assistant like Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. Everything in Spanish. We are so focused in Spanish. And as an agency, we work for clients to build top voice experiences for them in the Spanish market. We have built Pasapalabra, the TV is Alexa skill for the TV show. We have built Diana, meditation guided studio, and other experiences for education, health, and games. But we have also built our own Alexa skills, such as Beo. I don't know if you are a Spanish speaker, you may know it. This is a well-known kids game for guessing things, and we have built other experiments in order to research how elderly and kids use voice interfaces. Besides, and that's the end, we are working on creating more natural synthetic voices in Spanish with state-of-the-art algorithms. And about women in voice, I'm also, as Romina said, the lead ambassador of the Spanish chapter, and we have been doing events and hackathons since February 2019. So thank you.
Thank you, Nieves. So yeah, we have some ambassadors here. Sarah, as she said, from India, and Nieves from Spain. Bea is also an ambassador from Nieves, Italy. And I've heard previously that Falene is thinking about, potentially one day opening up an Israel chapter. But yeah, that's future talk. Definitely up for that for sure. Thank you all for the introductions. Let's jump straight in. I know asking what is voice like in your country is like the broadest question one could ask. Still, it's also one of the most exciting ones. So let's do that. Let's start with that. So I know, Bea, you've been telling us that you've done a lot of like research looking into the Italian market, the voice landscape. What companies are there? Where's voice at? So curious if you can share anything from that research with us, or the look into that landscape.
Sure, and I'm really sorry that we are not presenting anything, so I will be talking numbers, and I know it's hard to remember, but this is yes, I'm very happy to share of what I've learned and what I know about the Italian market, and actually I'm more interested to learn from you and from others here. If anybody wants to comment on our numbers and on our perspectives. But well, in general, what I know about Italian market, about the Italian conversational AI market, I know it is worth about 10% of the whole AI market in Italy, and as I can understand, it's quite aligned to like the general global AI market. So conversational AI, 10%. I think it's important. It's quite big. So it is really important field in the AI. I know that the adopters of chatbots and conversational solutions are growing and growing fast. One of the like very recent research from from Milan Polytechnics says that there is about 26% of companies that already adopted conversational AI solution. And this is for 2021. And I know the situation in 2020 was only 14%. So the growth is important, and people are very interested in it. From like the consumers and users perspectives, some researchers confirmed that already most of Italians know and understand what conversational AI or what chatbot or virtual assistant is. Many of them already interacted with such solutions, and they are often able to indicate the solution they used. So this confirmed they really used it. Most of the consumers use the virtual assistants on their smartphones and also on smart speakers. And the smart speakers are actually in Italy. There is a big preference for Alexa rather than for Google. Don't ask me why. I don't know. And what I know for Italian market is also that Alexa will have something like over 6,000 skills, which is not impressive comparing to English. I tried to count only the skills available in Italian for Italian market, right? So so that was the number. I don't know the numbers. I can't compare it with Google Assistant environment. I know in general is much less. The Google Actions are much lower number than the one for Alexa, but the Italian users do prefer Alexa. What else I could share is that most of the companies in Italy, the companies that already offer, the industries that offer such experience, the conversational experience, are definitely the telco. Telco and the media sector is actually leading the market. And then there are also utility, banking and insurance that are following. But I would say there is telco and media, a huge gap, a huge gap, and then we will have the utilities, banking and insurance. How the conversational AI or how the conversational solutions are made, I would say most of them are definitely informative and very little transactional, so that you actually can perform an action on with the solution. And there are not many that actually do lots of personalization. So they consider conversational solution as extension of their brand. There are some very important. In Italy, I could actually mention two. It's Toby of Vodafone and Poste of the Italian Post. So these are the main, most known solutions that almost all the respondents to surveys can actually can say the name of the solution. Well, I could go like this for hours, but I will leave the stage to my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Bea. That was like the perfect rundown for the market. That also kind of raised the bar quite high for everyone else. Don't panic, right? Like you don't have to give all the statistics here, but this was extremely interesting. Thank you so much, Bea. And I would suggest let's stay in the neighborhood. Nieves,
Yes.
where's Spain at?
Thank you, Romina. I should say that it's quite similar, at least with the Alexa numbers to Italy. So I must say that in Spain, 2018 was the year where the voice assistant ecosystem started. Alexa was launched in October 2018, and Google Assistant speaks Spanish since November 2017, although Google Home was launched in June 2018. So 2018 was a year, no? Although almost 4 years can be enough for mass adoption, or at least it met that in the US market, voice adoption in Spain is still in a quite early stage, I should say. No? According to a report published last month here in Spain by Prodigioso Volcán, from the user perspective, Alexa leads the smart speaker market, and Google Assistant leads the voice assistant use, mainly in smartphones. As Bea said, it happened the same in Italy. No? According to Google Assistant, is the main, as Android is the main OS operative system. That's the reason why Google Assistant leads the smartphone market. 77% of the Spanish internet users, more or less 25 million users, use a voice assistant in their phones, and 56% is Google Assistant. So it's clear Google Assistant leads, no? And it's followed by Siri, 30%, and Alexa, 18%. So there, the opportunity for Alexa is in smart speakers. No, 18% of the Spanish internet users use smart speakers. That's more or less 6 million users. Amazon Alexa and Alexa leads this way the market with the 64% of the share. That is 3.8 million users. So this is not a huge number, but it's a quite opportunity for us to do things with Alexa. No? Besides, I don't have the numbers of Alexa skills and Google Assistant updated, but I should say that Alexa leads also in quality of voice applications. We have more applications for Alexa than Google, and it's the quality there is representative. No? And of course, top ones are only available in Alexa. No? There are also their voice assistant. I don't know if you know Aura from Telefónica, Telco. Aura was launched in February 2018 too in Spain, and it was also launched in other 6 countries: Germany, UK, Chile, Brazil, Argentina. Aura lives in her own smart speaker too, which is only available for Telefónica customers. And companies, we can also extend Aura, such as Alexa with Alexa skills, with voice applications called living apps. So that's more or less the landscape.
Thank you so much, Nieves. And yeah, one question. Bea, the telco and media area are like the industries where voice adoption is, I guess, the fastest or farthest ahead. Also, utility and banking. I was immediately thinking, yes, that's what I've heard for other markets as well. No worries if you can't say it, like, because if you don't have the statistics at hand, but generally your feeling is that the same in Spain?
Yes, totally. Media and telco. There's a lot of things being done around content. So I think that's the way, and the reason, because they are leading, and there are not so transactional things, but there are a lot of things doing in entertainment, a lot of games and TV shows and so on for the Spanish users.
Thank you. Let's move over to Israel. Falene, you told us before when we met, because we must admit we met to meet each other before the panel, and you told us that there people can purchase smart speakers in Israel, if that's correct. So what does that mean? And you already said it in the introduction, it's a quite complex market, so tell us more, please.
So I'm happy to give a perspective here. I'll start off saying that the voice technology for Semitic languages, so that includes Hebrew and Arabic, is quite a bit further behind, simply because the structure of the languages are a little bit more complex. And I can go into this further detail if you'd want, or anyone who's listening, please feel free to talk with me about this, because I absolutely enjoy the linguistics aspect of this. But because there is such a delay, there is such an issue, with the base language, it is a little bit slower. This does mean that if we have any Hebrew skills, they have been specially adopted. Alexa doesn't have Hebrew as an available language, so the poly voices won't say it. Google does, and a couple of other voice systems will have Hebrew, but their pronunciation is very wild and dependent on whether or not it understands what the word is. Because of that, and probably other things, we don't have a lot of native language voice technology here. We do have IVRs, and they're throughout the entire systems, of course, banking and then health, which is fabulous. And we're slowly getting into the rest of it. We are not in the top 10 skills numbers in Alexa because we don't have, of course, Hebrew, but we do provide a lot of added benefit to the entire market. Because mostly in Israel, you'll notice that a lot of the high-tech companies and the companies that do use voice will market towards the United States. It's such a shame that we don't have an American perspective on this one, because that is where most of our efforts do go. But it is fabulous to hear what's happening in other countries. So, going back to the original question, can you buy a smart speaker in Israel? And the answer to that question is, as everything in this region, complicated. So, you cannot buy an Alexa in Israel. You cannot ship an Alexa from Amazon into Israel. If you do have it, you likely bought it from the UK or you bought it from the United States. And if you do happen to get your hands on a used one or you have it, you cannot access it unless you have an American Amazon account or a European Amazon account, specifically likely from the UK. So you will see that in Israel, a lot of the adopters of at-home voice technologies are immigrants. Because we come from our previous countries, we bring in our understanding of what this technology should be, and then we use it. You'll also see a lot of people who work in high tech. They will have that as an option to have in their homes. But in general, voice tech leaves Israel, does not stay in Israel, which is a wee bit unfortunate, but that isn't to say that there isn't hope for the future. Now, I don't want to leave you guys on like a negative, oh, Israel, it's just doesn't have enough. There are innovations for going forward. There's an association of companies for natural language processing in Hebrew and Arabic that is hosted by the government. And there's about 16 structured companies, including, you probably know of them, Coco Hub and Voca.ai. They're all part of this, and as well as banks and newspapers to give unstructured content. This is very, very good news because the market for Israel is very small. There's only about 7 million Hebrew speakers. There's more, but like 7 million is native. But there's a lot more Arabic speakers. And because there is this innovation that is happening for Arabic languages, for Semitic languages, we're able to sort of transfer some of that knowledge over. And if we want to go into the specifics of it as a developer, we can talk about how when you do want to try to make something that has that Hebrew aspect, that sort of native language aspect, there's so many basic complications. And if you write a chatbot or you design a chatbot, you may or may not consider this. Hebrew is not left justified. It's right justified. So anything that you write will have to suddenly be on the other side, which changes your entire design, leading it to having people not actually design for bilingualism or not allowing for a English to Hebrew or Hebrew to English change. So they'll actually, if they're very smart, they'll center justify everything. And if they're not willing to do that, they'll just keep it to one language or more, less, just one language. I hope that answers the question. There's so much to talk about in this landscape, but most of it has to do with using the technology to build things for the English-speaking market.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's like so much we could pick up on. Very interesting and so different, right? So thanks for sharing that, Falene. And so I'm assuming your work would then also be in like mostly directed to English-speaking countries then, right? Is that the case? Doing most of it?
And I'm assuming none of you speak Hebrew, so my Hebrew is great. And if some of you speak Hebrew, so we wouldn't necessarily want me working on that unless it was from a purely linguistic, morphosyntactic, phonological base, unfortunately.
All right. Thank you so much. By the way, to the audience, I see there's questions coming in. I take a break in a moment to answer or to ask some of the questions to the panelists. But before we do that, I'd love to hand the word over to Saren, because there's so much to share about and from India as well, right? Like talking about languages, there's so many languages in India. So tell us more, Saren, please.
Sure. So, we've been talking about whether Alexa is available in, Hebrew or all the regional languages in Europe that we talked about. Well, Alexa and Google Assistant are available in Hindi, both of them. In fact, Google Assistant is available in 8 more languages in India. However, the reality is a little more complicated because while India has 22 official languages plus English, it is a lot more complex. According to 2001 census, there are 122 major languages in India and about 1,600 dialects, which makes it a very, very complicated market, because just the diversity and the dialects and the overall population, as you all know, right? So the market in India is a little complex. Around 500 million people use Google Assistant every month, with Hindi as the second language next to English, and the most commonly used language. In terms of, if I look at smart speakers, Amazon Alexa is definitely, the preferred smart speaker. But the thing is that, there are 2 Indias, as we call them, right? The one that are upper class, upper middle class, who can afford a smart speaker, while there is an India which probably now has access to smartphone, right? And therefore Google Assistant becomes their preferred choice because Android is their go-to system. And a lot of these people are using voice for navigation, for search, for playing songs, and those are the major use cases that you see in voice. Again, if I have to talk about India and the languages, I think a lot of use cases are rather simple and not very complicated and transactional. I'll give you a very interesting example of a voice use case that has been implemented by a company called Paytm. So Paytm is a payments company. So when lockdown happened and things happened, when everything was online in India, you can actually do a lot of online transactions and online payment transfer, even to small retail stores. And there was this trust issue whether the money has come to my account or not from the other person when you are doing the transaction with a phone. So what Paytm did was they put these smart speakers in the shops, and as soon as you do the transaction, the speaker will just announce that this money has been received in the bank account. A very beautiful use case that you have built trust and voice as a use case, which everybody can just use, and you don't have to, nothing complicated, nothing transactional, just an informational use case. Another thing that's interesting is that the older generation and also the people who are not very comfortable typing, writing, or are not very well literate, they use voice as their main channel of communication. And they might not use smart speakers or smart voice assistants, but for example, WhatsApp, they'll send voice messages, right? So voice is a lot more than just speakers and assistants, but a lot of day-to-day transactions and lot of local interactions that people have with one another. And there are some statistics on why people can, or how people are using voice for search, and therefore you have to change all the algorithms, because voice search is a different game altogether, and you have to make sure that your search engine optimization and all of those are taken care of. But people actually are using voice not only in English but a lot of other languages as well. And probably I can touch on the point of how the local startups are actually doing a lot of work in this space rather than the bigger players. Bigger players, yes, Google, Amazon are doing a lot, but there are smaller players or startups which are working specifically in voice tech in India, which are driving a lot of this change. Um, yeah, those are some of the perspectives, and I'd love to touch on some of these use cases that we've seen. But yeah, that is the overall landscape as we see now.
Thank you so much, Saran. And I think I just ran through so many questions. I could now ask to follow up. I think this is so interesting. Let's check quickly though, because I know that I think there had been some questions lined up that go back to, I think, well, no, let me check. The first one was from, both are from Pilar. Let's quickly squeeze those in. Is there risk in the future of adopting English as a lingua franca for voice skills at the expense of other languages? I think that's a very interesting point. Who would like to answer to that? Falene, yes.
So Pilar, I have already been talking to you a little bit on this, but I do think that this is a very interesting topic. Just a thing you might not know about me because I didn't say, and you don't know me personally. My concentrations in linguistics were native language revitalization in Canada, so Canadian native language revitalization, and part of my PhD work, which I got 2 years in and then didn't write a dissertation for because who has time for that? There's actually a reason if you want, ask. Was on digitizing native languages. Having English as a lingua franca, or having in general a lingua franca, does create a community and a culture that exists separate from a regular day-to-day life. It is interesting, it is important. The fact that it's English does put English-dominated societies or societies of the West that speak English in a much higher position, which can marginalize minority communities, which is a problem. Is it a bad thing to have one sort of digital language? Sometimes. That's the best answer. That being said, there are good companies, good initiatives that are trying to make languages that are minority languages more relevant in the digital age. Mozilla goes to communities and they record languages en masse. They do a fabulous job of this. You have universities across the world going to their own indigenous and native communities, trying to document and work on these things. If you know a linguist, they probably know somebody, or they know something cool about a language that they wished they could type in. And these are things that do need to be explored. They also come with we're all going to have to say it, the corporate costs. People don't necessarily want to invest in languages that are less spoken. There are about 9 main skills in Alexa in 9 main countries that make skills in Alexa. So those are going to get the majority of the effort. They don't include China yet, so we don't know how much those go in there. Will English stay as the lingua franca? We don't necessarily know. It's already become sort of a lingua franca. If you go to any of our communities, you're going to see, yes, exactly, Maike, you're going to see that we already speak English. Look, we're here speaking English, biachad, together. But all of us have second languages, or first languages, and English is our second. And this has already happened. So we live with the consequences. We try to push our own community languages, knowing that there are always going to be a little bit of obstacles. And I really do hope that that answered the question appropriately. But if you want to talk about it more, please feel free. I love this topic.
Definitely. Thank you, Falene. And yeah, I think when we met to kind of get to know each other before the panel, we were also talking about how this already is sometimes a challenge, right? When you are in a country that is not focusing on English, for example, if you are in Italy and in Spain, where like you are developing in Spanish then at first, right? So Nieves, maybe you want to talk a little bit about how it might be challenging or maybe not to be in, developing in Spanish for Spain rather than in English for the US or UK, for example.
Yes, it's so challenging, and besides, we have Spanish is like we have 500 million native speakers, not around the world. It's not only Spain, no. And however, building for Alex and Will Assistant in non-English language means that most of the new language-based features are not available right away at the official launch. For instance, it can be years until you have those, no. Alexa Conversations was launched in July 2020. And it's not available yet in Spanish, almost 2 years later. No? And sometimes Spanish-speaking countries are not prioritized, no, in general features. And in Spain, we have another co-official languages, no, that they are important for us as citizens. We need to communicate with some institutions in our languages. So yes, I think that we need more resources on minority languages. We need like to make accessible those conversations in the language everybody feels more comfortable, and we need resources on that. No, so I think it's so important. These initiatives, such as the Mozilla one, because we need to push our personality, no? Voice is the way we communicate. So yes, we need more minority language on the spot.
Thank you so much, Nieves. Yeah, I was just also thinking it's important to keep in mind that the English language has different importance in different languages, right? Like, for example, I'm assuming just like it is in Germany, like not everybody just naturally also speaks English. Like my parents are not gonna use English if a system is not available in German. They're just not gonna use it then. So it is important to have these other languages kind of grow in that voice tech area, right? Yeah.
I think if language wouldn't matter, we wouldn't have been here, right? So I definitely think language matters.
Yes, plus one, well, probably from all of us, plus 4. And we just had a new guest joining here who just already left the screen again. Thank you, Falene, for sharing your little buddy there. We had another very, very interesting question in the chat, and I'm just going to read half of it. Do you think there will be more focus on producing strong speech components for all languages rather than full smart speaker solutions in limited languages? And to the panelists, there's more explanation around being in Denmark, trying to build a strong, or dreaming of a strong Danish text-to-speech, and the fact that it's just not there yet. So who would like to give an estimate heading here in terms of, will it be more like kind of components for all languages, or should it be limited languages and a full smart speaker? Yeah, Falene?
So very short. I think it really depends on the government and the people. For instance, in Israel, only the Israeli government is going to sort of sponsor this, because no company is going to say, not no company, but very few companies are going to say, I would like to start a company that will not make a profit in order to do research that is going to benefit just us. So it really depends on the government and the organization. If there's a university backing it, it's much more likely that it'll be a deep dive into a few very popular languages, probably about 10, maybe close to 15. And it's likely going to be English first, then Spanish, then going into French, Italian, more of the Western languages. This is what I see. This is what I understand from a history of research and grant applications and stuff like that. I would say it's very case by case, and in the cases where it's more adapted, it's because as a country had the research and brought it forth to a bigger company and said, here, take my data set, import it into your libraries. But other than that, I do think it's dependent.
Thank you so much. And Saran, I think you've been in the voice area for quite a time, so I would love to hear your view on this as well.
Yeah. So I think, at least from India perspective, I don't see a full-fledged smart speaker in Indian languages that's coming only for Indian languages, because, well, there's not a huge market for that, I would say, because people prefer to use, your smartphone and speakers or your assistant on a smartphone, rather than buying a specific piece or a device only as a smart speaker. There is a very limited population, I would say, that will probably be using that, and they are already using Alexas and Google Homes and Apple's devices. um, and like Falene mentioned, right, you have to see, is this profitable, because it's your end customers that you have to look to. And if you don't see that it's going to be profitable, no company is going to come. I would love to make a speaker specifically for Indian markets. uh, why not? And I think, to Falene's point earlier, uh, I think a lot of research in India, specifically in academic side of things, is working on open data sets for Indian languages. There was recently a news about Indian Institute of Science, which is a very premier research institution, where they decided to open source tech in 9 languages. Right, so they're doing all that is needed, specifically from gender, low income women, because there is a lot of research needed from even the gender equality perspective. Women or low income women in India do not even have access to uh, a lot of things. And we are talking about voice, and them using voice technology, right? We need to kind of have that data from all of those folks to really be able to do that. And I don't think this is going to be a profit or for profit sort of a thing. It's going to be a non-profit, and somebody probably more from academic and government sponsored organizations will have to do that. But that's the state of India. But if there is a smart speaker that we make for India, made in India by the Indians, I'd love to be part of that.
Definitely.
Hope
Thank
that
you so much.
answers.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bea and Nieves, would you also like to say something?
Yes, just a quick answer to that. Yes, I think that, as Falene and Sarandeep said, governments, they are a huge part of this, with the investment on resources, on the research, and the creation of data sets and so on. And I think the open source community plays a huge part on this too, no? So we have Mozilla, we have Koki TTS. I think we need more companies like that. Open source must be there on the spot. We have to push people working on that, because I think it's so important for low resources languages to be useful for the community and for the people, the consumers and everybody, no?
Thank you. Bea?
Yes, I would like to have one short comment too, on the voice international community and the languages. It always comes also with the country, right? So also, like for big players such as Google or Amazon, I think languages will be important if they want to expand into other integrations, right? There is a large number of population that want this voice device, and those devices, we know Alexa, Google, but also we should consider like the situation in South Korea or in China. They have completely different design. They are completely different. But beside that, also like to have this voice in your home equipment, right? You will not use it if this is not actually in your language. So also for like, I would suggest to the big vendors and big players to consider also all the languages and all the countries.
And sorry, just to add what Bea said, I think that there's also a huge opportunity for small companies specialized in languages, in minority languages, because in the end, we are experts on the language, and we are more capable of building technology that is more accurate because we understand the nuances of the language. So yes.
Falene.
I'm gonna jump onto that because coming from linguistics and development, I absolutely want that too. But in order to get a bare minimum where you can start to develop anything, you need to have a good set of data that is analyzed and is put together. So in order to get the language to even go, or the minority community to even start, you have to have a good data set. And that is very difficult to find in a majority of minority languages. Plus, you have to have a good grammar understanding, what is parsable, what is not. Otherwise, you're going to get at least text-to-speech systems that only look at the whole word. And we do understand that our current text-to-speech in at least English is as good as it is because it's be able to take phonemes and diphones and put those together. And we aren't necessarily able to do that for a lot of minority languages. We can do maybe words, but again, it has to be very well understood grammar-wise before we could even get to the development. And then look at Hebrew is very well documented, Arabic is very well documented, and we still struggle with these languages because of their vowel intercalation systems. It's interesting, it's a problem, it's not a short-term solution, and if you want to start something, you need to start really small, and you need to plan for like 10, 20 years of work. So it's difficult. Worth it, but difficult.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a slight turn here because I found another, I think it was the very, no, all good. Thank you so much for jumping in. I think this is exactly the conversation and discussion we want. There was one more question. I think it was the very first one in the Q&A section. I keep saying session. Specifically to Nieves, I would say here, and kind of going back probably in the area of maybe use cases, maybe also language. So Peter asked if it's maybe a lack of useful skills, or what's what you think is the reason behind low numbers of voice use in Spain?
Yes, good question. I think we have had a lot of problems in between the launch and how we are right now. It has been a pandemic, although a lot of people thought that COVID was so good for voice applications, but we have had a lot of crises and the ecosystem hasn't matured so well. So people don't want to invest money on that. That means they are not creating enough voice use cases. And that means also that not so well voice use cases are on the market. So it's like a wheel, no? And I think that's the problem. And that's why we are in these low numbers. But I'm also confident that we are starting to to see the light, and we are building more different use cases. And in the end, people, if they see that they can benefit from voice and from different voice application and use cases, they are going to start spreading the word, and the ecosystem will grow. So let's see.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I 100% agree. And let's just hope. I think I've seen that in the German market as well, where, for example, and that's what you said at the beginning. I think people start trying it out, and maybe they started too early, it didn't work so well yet. You won't understand, and you kind of don't come back that soon. I think that's at least what I've seen a lot, where, yeah, that might sometimes slow down adoption just because people think, oh yeah, tried it out, didn't work, not going to come back. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to throw probably the last question into this round. We've just talked about how much work is still, we would love to see, especially from open networks, how much still needs doing for all the languages. And I was just thinking about, I don't even know if this is true, so I'm very curious what you would say. Personally, I feel like all of us are kind of looking at the US and US information resources, the big ones, the big platforms, what are they releasing next, what's coming up next. It does sometimes feel like it's kind of centralizing, and this is without like negative connotation, but I am wondering, do you feel the same, and does that make sense given that we just said how much work we need for each countries or languages? Yeah.
I can go with this. So how much work? It's hard to estimate in numbers, right? Lots of work. So, I do confirm that we always do compare into the US market and the English solutions in English. What I've seen sometimes by the Italian companies, like the Italian developers of voice applications, that they would use, for example, like the Alexa or Google Assistant infrastructure and enhance it with own proper or open other resources, right? So it is not like you can do everything, but because the infrastructure also for different countries and languages are different, are not the same. But at least, let's say, I wanted to give like a positive final comment, right? Things are possible.
Thank you. I expected a slightly longer comment, so I was like, yeah, okay, what's like? Thank you so much. But yes, you're right. Sarah, what do you think? Are you even looking at, like, is the US your core source even?
I would say no, not for Indian languages,
Yeah.
because yes, the smart speakers are different thing, but I think a lot of use cases are being driven by local startups who are really focusing on languages here. And I was, I was just hosting a panel last week, and one of the person who is, is part of an insurance company here in India, talked about a very interesting use case where he said that, they have a use case where they are using a voice assistant on the phone for farmers. And farmers, if we think about it, are a set of users which we will say that, they're not very tech savvy. They will not use these technology, and therefore we will not probably even think about a use case like that. But they understand Marathi. That's a language that they went with the voice assistant in, and they did this as a POC. And the POC was so successful that they now want to do it in several other Indian languages. And of course, the technology that they're using is from a local startup who's working a lot on technology. So I think for Indian, at least the use cases that are in India, we are seeing a lot of startups, and there are a couple of them which are very, very interesting. For example, there's one called Ganani.ai, who's looking to turn the mobile phone into a voice translator and a message reader. So, which means that the users can transliterate a voice message to text format, and then they can share it with other on WhatsApp. So, you're not talking about typical use cases where we're telling Alexa, hey, switch on my light. We are talking about a completely different use case for voice. Similarly, there are startups like Vernacular, which is building automated speech engines for Indian speakers to call centers. So they are trying to automate all call centers in Indian languages. There is something called Vocal, where Indian can ask questions in Indian languages, just like you ask questions on Quora.com, but this is voice. And then people can respond in voice, right? So a lot of these startups and interesting use cases you will see in India. So I will say that we're not looking at US and UK for the use cases. A lot of work is being done in India, and some very, very interesting use cases you will see that you will probably not see in other markets, mainly because of the overall demographics, the kind of population, the kind of language, and the diversity we have.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that makes absolute sense to hear that like the US is not the kind of role model or market to look at. This is so interesting to see how they are. So I feel like we all need to keep chatting after this panel and just, dig into all of these topics more. Maybe we can just kind of have a continuous meet up or something. Thank you all so much. We just have 1 minute left. So I'm going to ask if anyone would, or I'm going to go around. If you want to do like a quick last comment and goodbye, how about we do that quickly in the last remaining minute? Falene, you just clapped. How about you start?
Well, it was fabulous to be here with all of you wonderful ladies and all of the wonderful, I'm thinking thousands of people listening. Just as a thing to leave off, I think that there's so much possibility for voice. I think that women in voice have a very good place, especially considering how often the voice assistants we have are female, or even the chatbot personas that we do use are female. And having that voice and that perspective as a woman, or at least hiring women to do that, is, I think, crucial in order to combat some of the negative stereotypes we may accidentally have. So that's where I'm going to leave it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. My last name is McKenna, Falene McKenna. That's it.
Thank you, Falene. I'm afraid we are at the hour. I know Bea has already given her last comment. Nieves, one last sentence to say goodbye if you want.
Thank you all. And yes, diversity is so important, diversity in language and in the community. So join Women in Voice too, if you want. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bea. Thank you, Romina. Thank you, Saran. And thank you, Falene. It was so nice.
Thank you. Saran, one quick last message.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And do connect if you want to learn more about India. But, happy to be part of this panel and Women in Voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so fantastic. Looking forward to chat more. And yeah, everybody have a good day. Have a good rest of the conference. This was fun. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.